Casual magic is about how we find beauty in the mundane every day. We all look forward to the 1% of days in our lives that are extraordinary, like the wedding, the birthday, the job promotion. But 99% of our days are just ordinary. And wouldn't it be sad if we only allowed ourselves to experience joy 1% of the time? Casual magic is a habit to retrain your brain to find joy in all the little things of every day that are casually magic. Hi everyone, my name is Jade and welcome back to today's episode of Finding Your Casual Magic. And today is very exciting because we have one of my most anticipated guests of season 1. Like, I literally had this guest on my dream list of guests. So I just feel very, very grateful and lucky to be learning from him today. And I know that you guys are going to get so much out of this, so much wisdom. Let me now do my hype up spiel. Today's episode is the epitome of what this podcast stands for, because today we are talking everything joy. How to find happiness every single day, or, as we'll explore with our guest, how to be frequently happy. Do you ever feel guilty for experiencing joy when there are so many problems in the world? Do you ever find it hard to be optimistic when your life feels far from satisfying? Do you know how much words and storytelling can be the key to enjoying your daily life more? Today's guest is an absolute treat. David Larbi is a content creator, poet, and host of the wonderful podcast Mindful Moments, where he explores the most human of struggles, from perfectionism to finding hope and making the most of our obstacles. And David is now an author, having recently written and is about to publish an incredible book called Frequently Happy: 52 Mindful Moments to Bring Hope and Joy. I had the fortune and pleasure of getting my hands on this book early, and it truly is a joy. David has such a way with words, enticing the reader with an entirely new perspective on the mundane, which you may already know if you've ever been fortunate enough to see one of David's wonderful videos online, and if you've witnessed his impromptu prose about heartwarming small moments from his day, you would know that this man is the personification of sunshine. And it is an honor to invite him onto the podcast today. So without further ado, hi, David.
Hi, Jade.
How are you?
Oh, after that, how could I be anything but wonderful?
I do love to give you the hype you deserve.
No, that was so. I'm a little bit emotional. That's very kind. That's really, really kind of you. Thank you.
Every word I wrote really comes from a genuine place. Like, I really love what you do, and it's just an honor to have you here today.
I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, so we have this tradition on the podcast where we start every episode by inviting the guest and inviting everyone listening to take a moment to just ground. And we're going to do a little meditation. And if anyone listening has never done a meditation before, I promise it's not scary. You don't need to have a life epiphany in the next few minutes. We're literally just going to stop and breathe for a few moments. And I really hope it's an opportunity for you to ground yourself in space, to come back to yourself, and to hopefully let this episode impact you more deeply than maybe it could have if you just, were kept on going in the whirlwind hecticness of your day. Take a second to notice where you are in space. Are you in a room? If so, how big is the room? Are you outside? What can you see? And if you feel comfortable to do so, gently close your eyes. Start to become aware of your breathing. Notice where you can feel the breath in your body. Maybe noticing the rise of your chest and belly at the inhale and fall on the exhale. Imagine yourself rooting down into the ground, feeling grounded and aware. And maybe notice if you're carrying tension anywhere in your body. If you can, try to allow that tension to release at the exhale. We're going to do a final 4, 6, 8 breath, where you'll take a deep inhale for 4, hold it for 6, and then exhale for 8. So when you're ready, deep inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the top for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And big exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Welcome to the episode. How did you find the meditation?
I loved it.
Yay.
I feel very relaxed.
Do you feel grounded?
I do.
Good. So David, many people online know you as a literal sunshine human. Like, I frequently will see comments on your reels like, oh my God, bro cured my depression. Like, oh my God, bro's smile is just like the best thing for humanity. Would you describe yourself as an optimist? And if you do, have you always been an optimist?
I most definitely would. And it's something that I didn't know I was until other people identified it. Because being an optimist is kind of glass half full rather than glass half empty, isn't it? And
it's quite a bold claim.
I think it is. And I think that's why I've shied away from that for so long. And part of actually me not wanting to describe myself as an optimist before was because I was worried it would always tempt fate and I'd stop. Do you know what I mean? I'd stop seeing things so positively.
Yeah.
It's something I proudly claim now because, the glass is half full.
And was there a turning point where you realized, or like someone said to you, like, oh wow, you're just a really happy guy, and you were like, oh my gosh, I claim this, I am an optimist?
It was when I realized how positively it affected the people around me for me to be optimistic about life generally. It almost felt like, actually, this is bigger than just you being in a good mood a lot of the time or you seeing things positively. It's actually helpful to people around you. It's nice to be around you because you look at things this way. So don't hide the fact that you feel things this way. Tell people and show people. And
I feel like so much of what you do online is intentionally spreading joy. Like you're in like the business of joy almost. Business feels like a horrible word to say, but why is it important to you to focus on joy, on spreading joy?
I feel like it's very easy to pay attention to things that aren't the way we'd like them to be, just because those are the things that demand our attention, if anything. If something isn't the way you want it to be, or if something is a problem that needs to be fixed, or you feel down about something, automatically you go to do something about that and to focus on that because it's something that you want to change. Whereas the things that we don't want to change, we tend to accept very quickly and then move on from them. And that just means that automatically over time, the bad things feel like they add up a lot more than the good things do. And everyone deserves to feel good. My whole belief is that by virtue of your existence, you matter. Therefore, you deserve to have a happy existence.
I love that.
So I really hope in sharing my moments of joy, my moments of happiness, it just helps other people to acknowledge their own a lot more often and to know that there's no thing that's too small to be happy about and too small to focus on for a little bit longer.
And has it always come easy to you to find little joys?
It does now, and but it hasn't always. When I started to realize how doing that affected me, I made it an intentional practice. But before it was an intentional practice, it wasn't really something that I'd say that I did very often, or I find it very easy to do. Luckily, it's one of those things that once you start to do and once you kind of practice that, like with any practice, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So it's something that now comes very easily. And I want to come easily to everybody because it really does make a big difference to the 99% of your life. Like you said it so perfectly. The big days and the big joys and the big events are 1% of our lives. And we deserve to enjoy a lot more than 1% of our lives. So if you can find the small happinesses, they come a lot more frequently, they come a lot more often, and you're able to enjoy them and you're able to enjoy your life.
Yes, I feel like we're so aligned in our vision of like happiness and everyday joy. So you mentioned that you were more intentional about noticing. For me, that's this practice of casual magic. Like for me, coining that term was really useful.
When I first came across you, which I think was before you were where I existed, one of the best things that I got from your stuff was casual magic. Like I started to have that phrase in my brain a lot, which helped me because it's just wonderful. It's just magic. Like it's literally, it's wonderful. And as you said, it aligns so perfectly with how it's a different way to phrase exactly how I think of those exact same things. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, you know exactly how positively it affects your life when you look at things that way.
But in my case, it's like I almost needed something to tag that experience with, like, oh, this is something casual magic. And for me, I would do gratitude journaling, and I kind of had this practice of every single day almost forcing myself to find things that I was grateful for, whether they came naturally or not. Sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, I actually am having a miserable day. Like, there's nothing that I can really think of right now that I'm that grateful for. But you're like forcing yourself to put something. Like, for you in that journey of intentionality, of retraining your brain to notice things, did you have any practices that you did? Or like, did you have, words, phrases? How did it come to you?
My version of casual magic is small joys. Those are the things I try and pay attention to. And journaling is my specific, because words are my thing. I really love everything.
As we're going to get into.
Everything I do, everything I love comes back and comes down to words in some way. And I've actually unconsciously journaled my whole life. I just didn't know it was called journaling until I was introduced to that as a practice. When I was in secondary school, I was a very good student generally. But one of the things that I used to get at parents' evenings, if I got any criticisms, it would be, David looks like he's concentrating really hard. He looks like he's writing something to do with the lesson. And then he'll go to his desk and he's got another notebook out and he's just scribbling whatever he wants to write.
Oh my God, that's so funny. What were you writing?
I would just write thoughts as they came to me. Like if something was just so pressing on my mind, I had to get it down before it left. I would just write it down. It could be lyrics, poetry, anything.
Yeah.
I'd write it and then I'd get on with the lesson. It's just that this needs to be written down right now.
It's so healthy. Like, for your mental health, you're like, I'm going to process this experience in the moment. Like, king of introspection.
Obviously, the downside to that is that, if I'm in a place where I can't necessarily do that, I then just become completely distracted and not be present. Because I'm thinking I must, which is why I then started scheduling time to actually do that kind of thing. And then was told, it's called journaling.
Knowing that about your history of journaling makes a lot of sense, because you recently wrote a book.
I did.
And it's very good, and we're going to get into it. But at times, your book feels like journal entries. You describe this, the mindful moments, and every single chapter, there's a poem or there's a reflective prose, but then there's this moment where you're literally just talking about your own experiences. It feels so deeply personal. It feels like it's not like you're just taking a concept like perfectionism and musing on that topic from afar. It feels like you take us into moments of your journey where that was coming up for you and you had to be thinking about it because it was literally something in your experience and you were using this book to process it. Did you feel like this book was cathartic, and did it feel like journaling?
Yeah, hugely. I feel like, especially with creating online content, I'm sure you'll have felt the same thing. Sometimes the things that people engage with most and connect you to people most are the things that you really shared part of yourself in. I didn't want it to be a prescriptive book or a book where I'm telling people what to do or what to think. I wanted to share. And I fortunately had a base of evidence with my online content that when I share, that's when I connect with people most. And ultimately, that's what I want to do with the book. I want to connect to people and people to feel connected to it. So it did feel incredibly cathartic to share my own experiences and know that there's going to be someone somewhere that will benefit from hearing this or will feel less alone for reading this.
And how did you go about writing? Was it you sat there and you looked at the blank page and you thought, okay, I've got to write something. Let me try and think about something that's inspirational? Or were you always drawing from your experience in that moment, and then it felt like you were like almost running to the page to write? Like, how was the writing process for you?
It was many different things at many different times. At first, I like structure. I'm quite a disciplined person. I was feeling really lucky to have the book and I really wanted to do my best job. At first, I was sat down at my desk, 9:15 a.m., mug in front of me, ready to write every day.
I'm at my corporate 9 to 5 of my own making.
Literally, I worked so hard to leave my 9 to 5 and create. And then as soon as I got up, it's like, right, back to business. But that stopped working quite quickly because I really felt like I was forcing it. And then I really had to have a sit down and think, how am I actually going to be able to communicate in the way I've communicated before? And it became very clear I just had to kind of do what I was already doing, get the words somehow, or get the concepts or get what I was trying to say, then eventually try and turn that into bigger ideas. So I did loads of things. I would go for a walk and dictate what I was thinking.
Oh, wow.
And then I transcribe that and then write it in good prose, something that would actually make it into a book.
Yeah.
At some point I was literally just writing a sentence every day. And ultimately that just meant that any idea I had or any concept I was trying to tackle or trying to address the only ones that I could really do justice were the ones I truly felt strongly about.
Yes.
And that's how I really filtered through my thoughts, because I had a lot of ideas, but I was like, which ones of these are actually valuable? Which ones of these do I actually feel and can I actually communicate well? That process really helped me manage to do that.
Wow. Are you quite a feelings-driven person?
Massively. One of the biggest turning points in my life was recognizing that I'm a really sensitive and emotional person. And when I was in my first year of university, I had a social media break where I took 3 months off all types of social media, like everything. And at that time, I was a really heavy user. I wasn't really creating anything on there. I was just literally consuming all the time. And I took 3 months off it. And after I came back to it, I said to one of my friends that my mental health had been so much better since doing that. And he said to me, that makes sense because you're a really emotional person. And I was like, hold on. What are you trying to say here?
You're like, no, I'm not.
I think especially as a man,
Yeah.
hearing that from another of your male friends, automatically I got my back up and I got a bit defensive. I was like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say about me? Especially given I was 18, 19 at the time. And at that, especially, I mean, we made a lot of progress in the last few years when I reflect on it in terms of the way we view emotions, especially men's emotions and men's mental health. At the time, I almost took his insult until I realized he didn't mean it that way. He was literally just...
how was it said?
He was stating fact. And I sat with myself. I journaled about it.
Like most emotional people.
Dear diary, someone called me emotional today. How wrong were they?
This just really doesn't feel like it resonates.
Oh no, literally, I was when I was writing about it and thinking about it, I realized, okay, this person is he's still one of my closest friends. He said this as an observation. And if that was a problem for him, you wouldn't be friends in the first place.
Yeah.
And also,
it was almost a liberation.
It was a liberation. He was completely correct. He's like, yes, I am a very emotional person.
Yeah. And he loves you anyway.
He loves me anyway. He loves me because...
Here we go.
Because I'm a very emotional person.
And you can both be men and emotion. One of you can be emotional and the other can appreciate that emotional side.
Absolutely.
And there's no problems. That's actually something to celebrate.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so your book is called
Frequently
Happy. What does that mean? Tell me, what is the definition of frequently happy?
So the title comes from one of the poems in the book, which ends with the lines, I always pay attention when a small joy grabs me. Some say easily pleased, I say frequently happy. And that is my favorite line of poetry I've ever written personally. Because when I came up, I was like, yes,
that's a Chili Pepper one.
Yes. And I was like, that is everything I've been trying to say with, you know, sometimes when you're someone I'm a very verbose person, I'm very wordy, but sometimes I'll be able to sum something up that I feel quite succinctly. I feel very proud of myself. And I felt very proud of myself because that's, in order to be happy a lot of the time, we have to be open to and accepting of all kinds of happiness in all kinds of forms at whatever scale it comes. A lot of the time, like you said, you feel like it's only the big things that are worth being happy about. You feel like, unless this is something I can show off about or I can explain to somebody else or I can put in front of anyone, they could objectively say, oh yeah, this is a big deal. It's not really worth me feeling good about, me feeling happy about. And that's just really not the case at all, because if something makes me happy, it makes me happy. If something small makes me happy, that means I'm going to be happy a lot more of the time.
Yeah.
I don't really believe in being easily pleased because that just the concept doesn't really make much sense to me. If I'm easily pleased, that means I'm pleased often. Yeah. And is that not a good thing? Like, is it not nice to be happy? And there's a reason I didn't call the book How to Be Happy or Happiness All the Time or Happiness Every Day, because, you know, that's not realistic. But every day may not be good. There's going to be something good in every day. If I'm on the lookout for the small things that make me happy, I'm going to find 5 to 10 of them minimum in every single day.
Give me some examples.
The sofa we're sitting on right now is really comfortable. It's really comfortable. I'm leaned back. I'm sitting in a really comfortable sofa. That is one of the...
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for bringing me it. I mean, it's not every day I see you and sit on the sofa. So a better example is today, as I was getting onto the train, I stepped onto the train and the seat literally right in front of me was empty, and it was the only empty seat in the 2 rows. It was like the seat was waiting for me to sit in it. That felt marvelous. It made me feel like I was living a movie. And if things on that scale can make me happy, then I can find something every day. It's not going to be that difficult.
I love that. And I think the beauty of it is these are moments that easily could pass you by.
Yes.
Right? It's not that you have to change anything about your life, you know? You were probably going to take that seat regardless of noticing that, you know, it happened to be free just for you. But the fact that you do notice it suddenly creates this small joy experience. Yes. And when you kind of experience that, so you're sitting there, what goes through your mind? Yeah, like you mentioned that you feel like you're a movie character. Like what's the thought process? Are you like, oh my God, like this is so wonderful, I get to be here, or oh my God, small joy, like you're tagging it in your experience. What is that moment in your head looking like?
I just think, really nice, thank you. That's my bit. Small joy, really nice, thank you. That's the sentence every time.
Yeah, and it's that simple.
Because it's not a huge moment.
Yeah.
I don't have to make a huge deal out of it.
Yeah.
It's just recognizing it at the time. And like I said, these things don't demand our attention the same way that big things do. One thing I'm always really cautious to do, or cautious not to do rather, is make it seem like if you're not happy all the time, it's your fault. You're not looking hard enough. You're not trying. It's not that at all, because we're all trying really hard. Life is trying by nature. We're all trying really hard. So it's more a case of redirecting effort into something that will make us happy and will bring us joy, because we deserve that, rather than it being, I'm not trying hard enough to be happy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I would love you to actually read us a moment that I think fits this very well.
I would absolutely love to.
Would you mind reading us the Steward of Good Things?
The Steward of Good Things. Would you like the poem? Okay. Yes, this poem is called Steward of Good Things, and this is actually one of my favorite chapters in the book. Why has this joy come to me? I don't think I can answer. There are many more deserving, taller, stronger, smarter. Yes, it makes me happy. Yes, it's what I want. That is what affirms the fear that soon it might be gone. What if I'm found out? What if I can't be enough? What if I can't prove myself? What if I mess this up? What if it makes me better? What if I'm more than I think? What if things go to plan? What if I can swim, not sink? Someone had to have it. I'm grateful that it's me. Grateful and accepting might be all I have to be. Why has this joy come to me? I don't think I can answer. I'll just keep doing my best and leave questioning for after.
Thank you. Wow, it feels so good to listen to you reading out one of your poems in person. What a joy, small joy. The reason I wanted you to read this is because I think this will resonate with a lot of people. And when we think about joy, it is actually so often paired with guilt.
Yes.
And questioning, should I be experiencing this happiness? Why me? There are so many things going on in the world. We live in such a heavy world. I love that you mentioned so much of life is just trying, because it feels like there's just always things going wrong, in our personal lives, in the rest of the world. There's so much suffering. And so to feel joy feels almost self-indulgent.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who feels that guilt and feels like their joy is not something they deserve?
I have always been optimistic by nature, but I'd say the last 2 or 3 years are the years where I've really enjoyed my life most of the time. I have always found it quite difficult to, on a grand scale at least, feel consistent joy or feel consistently happy all the time and feel like I deserve that at the same time. It's either I feel down and feel like I should be happier, I want to be happier. And then when I get something good, or when I feel something good or achieve something or obtain something I want, I'll immediately start to feel guilty and it feels wrong and it feels like I shouldn't have it. It's not that I shouldn't feel happy. It's that more people should get to feel what I'm feeling right now whenever I feel good. Me feeling like I don't deserve it or me wishing it away, first of all, doesn't do anyone else any favors. And second of all, doesn't work, because things don't always happen the way that we want them to. My responsibility isn't to explain or justify why I have it. It's just to take good care of it and be grateful for it. Gratitude goes a lot further than guilt, and is the more appropriate reaction to feeling joy and feeling happiness. The guilt comes from a really pure place and comes from a good place, but ultimately doesn't serve anybody. If anything, it limits how good this good thing can be for me, because I'm not allowing myself to accept it and feel it in its fullness. That guilt should be channeled into gratitude and trying to help other people feel the same thing, rather than chastising myself for something that I deserve and should have anyway. It's, as I said, it's not that I don't deserve this, it's that more people should get to have this, and I'm grateful that I get to have this.
I love that, because also guilt is not a mobilizing emotion.
No.
Right? You feel guilt and you want to shrink. When you feel like your life is already so abundant and you're celebrating everything around you, that's contagious. You know, it brings joy into other people's lives. It inspires you to help other people feel equally as grateful for the opportunity to be alive. And I love this idea of shifting it, you know, to not think of guilt as something inherently negative, to recognize that it can exist, but to also invite it to be something that allows you to really hold your joy. I love that, like to hold it with care.
Yeah.
I would love to play a game with you.
I'm always up for a game.
Amazing. So the game is called Devil's Advocate.
Okay.
Do we like this game?
I spoke too soon about being up for a game. No, I'm just kidding.
Basically, I just am so aware that a lot of people are going to click onto this episode and click onto my podcast in general, right? And think, who are these bloody people chatting about being happy and joyous? Like who are they to tell me to be happy, right? Like, oh, they don't realize how many things I've got going on in my life. They don't know, you know, all the hardship I'm facing. How can they just sit there on this comfy sofa and tell me to be happy? And so I would love to maybe share 2 experiences that 2 people could be facing, maybe listeners or just hypothetical situations, and to pose the challenge to you of why optimism should matter to them. Okay. So let's imagine I'm a student. I'm doing my A-levels. Life is tough. I am stressed. I am doing my 3 A-levels. I'm trying to get into medicine. So I'm doing maths, biology, and chemistry. They're not easy. I'm working 2 part-time jobs to help support myself and my family. And I've just gone through a heartbreak. I'm just feeling so overwhelmed with everything. I don't want to have to drag myself to the library to study every day. And I'm just feeling like everything's incredibly heavy right now. And then you're telling me I've got to add the act of trying to be optimistic and happiness, you know, how do I become happy in this situation? I feel the antithesis of optimism right now.
First and foremost, optimism is not a synonym for happiness. They aren't the same thing. That concoction of circumstances you just described, there is not a single person on earth who would feel joyful and happy in those circumstances, who should feel happy or joyful in those circumstances. And anyone who gives you a brand of optimism that says you must invalidate everything you feel right now in pursuit of feeling better and feeling different is telling you the wrong thing, and you shouldn't listen to them. Because if you have to invalidate your feelings to feel good, you aren't really going to feel good. What you're pursuing isn't feeling good, it's avoidance. So the first thing is to validate and understand everything I feel right now, I should be feeling. And objectively right now, things suck. Things are terrible. First and foremost, I'd accept that and sit in that for a second. How could you possibly work through something if you haven't acknowledged it exists first? How could you possibly work through that if you don't give yourself the grace to feel the natural emotions you feel in those circumstances, the sadness, the stress, the pressure, the difficulty? Optimism doesn't always have to look like spreading joy to other people, smiling through everything you're going through. Sometimes it literally is just managing to do the things you need to do because you know it's going to bring you better things in the future. Someone who is wonderful enough to pursue medicine and do those terribly difficult A-levels is someone who is working a couple of jobs to support themselves. All of those things are in pursuit of creating a better life for yourself. So first and foremost, all the work you're doing isn't just to lift yourself out of this difficult moment. It isn't just to make your life harder. It's in service of something. It's for a purpose. And that purpose will become clear. All you have to do is do one thing at a time, one day at a time. You're studying maths, chemistry, biology. If you put 3 textbooks, or if you put a textbook from each of those subjects in front of you, you wouldn't be able to read all those textbooks at the same time. You study one subject at a time. It's one thing at a time, one foot in front of the other at a time. There's a chapter in the book, and it's literally about how you get through things by literally just continuing, and how continuing is one of the most understated strengths there is. Just hanging in there, keeping going, one foot in front of the other, leads to a better place. One day, things change gradually, and then all at once. At some point, all the things you're working for will come to you, and things will start to get easier and easier. All you have to do at the moment isn't necessarily be happy that you're struggling or feel like none of these things matter. They all matter. They're all difficult. They're all in service of something, and you're earning that for yourself day by day. And take pride in the fact that you are doing all of these things to create a better life for yourself, and be grateful to yourself for putting in that work, because it is all going to pay off.
That was a beautiful answer. Thank you. As the student, I now feel inspired to continue. Thank you. I love this, actually, the message of continuing, because sometimes, as you say, like, it is just about being present with whatever it is, and you don't need to think about, next week, the next year, the next 5 years, and making all of that align for you right now. It's like, just get through the problem of today, and eventually maybe joy starts to abound, but you don't need to put pressure on that.
I feel like optimism and joy sometimes are looked at as really fanciful things. They're looked at as luxuries. It's like, when I'm in this certain position, when I have the luxury of the time to be able to feel joy, then I'll feel happy. When I have the luxury to be optimistic, then I'll be optimistic. They're tools just as much as discipline and hard work, and those things are also tools to make your life easier. Optimism and joy are things to also lighten the load that's on your shoulders. They're not things that you have to be in a certain position or you have to earn to feel them. The whole point is you deserve to feel them where you are right now, and there are ways to do that. You're not limited from feeling those things or stopped from feeling those things just because your life doesn't necessarily look the way you feel like it should or you want it to at the moment. If anything, making an effort to feel those things will make your current situation easier. And then when you're in the position you want to be, will make the good even better.
Oh, I love that. I'm having this visual of someone, you're like studying in the library, they're cramming, but they take a little moment to just take a little sip of their hot drink, right? Or to like zoom out and be like, actually, I really like biology. Like, it's actually really fun.
Yes.
This thing that I get to learn.
Yeah.
And as you say, you don't have to wait. Like, you can do your continuing, but you can also find the little sparkles, the little casual magic, the little small joys now.
I studied English at university. And when I was reading, I used to have to read a book a week. And I actually did the required reading because I did actually really like the subject. And I would give myself a sweet every 10 pages.
I love it.
Even if it was a book I really hated,
like a
really
little
struggled with.
mouse.
I felt like the video of the little mouse that eats alone. Like, I felt like that in the corner of the library. But it got me through the books.
Yeah. So the other scenario I'd love to present to you in this wonderful game. I'm someone who thinks that joy and optimism is really cringe. It's actually just really annoying. Like, all these people who are like, oh, like, just be happy and smile. Invite a smile on your face. They just find that really like annoying and cringe. And to them, the idea of walking around like some happy chappy is like, they just can't imagine doing it because it doesn't align with their personality. What would you say to this person who thinks that the optimism is just, the cringe keeps coming up for me as a word?
Our feelings are one of the most personal means of expression that we have access to. Someone's expression of joy might be very cringy to you. One, I don't think there's anything wrong with cringe anyway. That's me personally. You might. It's absolutely fine. No judgment. I don't think being cringy is a bad thing. I think some of the best things in life are on the other side of cringe. But even if certain ways of expressing joy are cringy to you, your expression of joy doesn't have to look like that. It doesn't at all. One of the reasons it was important to me to have journal prompts in this book, every chapter has a poem, a reflection, and a journal prompt, is because I truly want people to ask themselves and interrogate themselves on the subjects that I talk about in the book. Because ultimately, there is no right way to approach this kind of thing because everyone's lives and circumstances are so very different. What brings me joy, my small moments of joy, won't be the same that there's the things that bring you your small moments of joy. Your casual magic is different to my casual magic, but it's all magic. It doesn't have to be expressed in the same way that somebody else expresses it. It just needs to be something that you recognize and makes you happy. In fact, if it's something that makes sense to you and you don't feel like expressing it to somebody else, or you don't particularly think they'll be understood by someone else, all the better, because that means it's very personal.
It means you're not performing joy.
It means that there we go. It's the difference between performing and actually living it. And the whole point is that we live it. The people who share it and express it and show it, some of us do it in a way just to highlight the fact it's there. Some people do it because they can't possibly keep it contained. And a lot of people will just keep it to themselves. And that's absolutely fine. The point is that it's for you. So you don't have to do it in the same way that you see other people doing it. You need to do it in a way that's tailored to and personal for you, because you are the only person who lives your 24/7. You're the only person who's in your head all the time. So it has to make sense for you.
So you actually structured the book around the theme of the 4 seasons. Can you talk a bit more about that stylistic choice and maybe how the seasons served as inspiration for the themes of your book?
I wanted the book to be something that's relevant all the time. There's something in there that's relevant to anything we're going through in life. the 4 literal seasons was a nice, easy way to structure it and do it that way, because there are things that are specific to what we attach to certain seasons. Like, for example, winter, we feel we
Misery.
Know it to be, you said that really quick. Really, it's winter. Don't you love winter, Jade?
I'm sorry.
Don't you love it when it's dark at 4 p.m. and when it's really cold? But yeah, I mean, literally, there are things that we associate very tightly to seasons.
Yeah.
Winter, you associate with it with being dark at 4 p.m. and it's cold and it's a little bit harder to go about things. But equally, not every chapter in the winter section of the book is about that. There are other topics in there. And so the seasonal thing is a twofold thing. One of them is the literal seasons, and then the other is seasonal things and seasons that we might live through in life. There are seasons for joy, seasons for sadness, seasons for hard work, seasons for rest, all of that kind of thing. I wanted to approach it that way because I wanted this to be something that you can pick up at any time in your life. And there's something in there that's relevant to whatever you happen to be going through at that time.
Has it actually reframed the way that you see any of the seasons?
Definitely. I have never been so prepared for or enjoyed winter so much as this year. Yeah, I think.
Teach me. Evidently, I need it.
This is why I wrote the book. But I mean, usually I don't even know when the clocks are going to change or when the clocks are going to go back. This year, I was prepared for it. When it gets darker earlier, I'm ready to be cozy. I feel like I'm looking at the positives, and yeah, this year I feel like I'm living my life still rather than surviving the winter. Because again, living in the UK, to be quite honest, I don't know what I was really doing before, because to not make an effort to enjoy myself in this time means I'm wasting half of my year, essentially. So I really do need to work for it. And yeah, I think approaching things that way and seeing it as like, it's effort, but it's effort worth making. That's really helped.
And you talk about simple things like just wearing the right clothes for winter.
Absolutely. A lot of my struggles with winter are with denial. I'll pretend. I'll pretend that things like I'll set an outfit out.
Yeah.
And it'll be too cold for
Fire
that
outfit.
Yeah,
for summer.
I'm gonna. When when you had non-uniform day the next day at school.
Yeah.
And you lay the clothes out before you go to bed, and you wake up. I'll do that, and then it'll be cold. The weather won't be suitable for what I'm gonna wear, and I'm wearing it anyway. And then I'll moan the whole day about being cold. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, admit defeat.
As much as I love joy and I enjoy joy, I can't feel it all the time. As much as I want to, I can't feel it all the time, and that's just life. So yeah, accepting winter for what it is. That's the big thing as well, because winter is what it is, and it's the same every year. And it's enduring. And why should I not accept winter for what it is and try and see its positives rather than try to force it into what I want it to be?
I do think it's hard when we're given these almost environmental factors to contend with that invite our mood into a more negative state.
Yes.
And I think it's very cultural in Britain to complain.
Yeah.
I think we bond over complaining. Like in the winter, it's like, it's a given that you're going to mention the cold when you first meet someone, and to almost express your joy for the dreary weather. It feels so countercultural and unrelatable. How do you think culture impacts our capacity to feel frequently happy?
I think it has a very, very big impact. Even the devil's advocate scenario you gave me before, the whole idea of certain things being cringy. If things are labeled as cringy, it limits the things that we can enjoy. And so if you know culturally something that you feel or something that you're going to do isn't going to be looked at positively, you'll avoid it. You won't do it. And that may be something that would actually have made you happy, but you won't do it because you feel culturally it won't be accepted. It's not fashionable. To go back to the winter example, it's not fashionable to be happy in winter. If you say you'll really enjoy the winter, chances are everyone in the room is going to look at you a certain way. But ultimately, I just feel like I deserve to enjoy my life. However that comes across. It's very easy to fall into patterns we don't even realize we're falling into. Like you said, the complaining about the weather thing. It hit me a few years ago. For example, summer is my favorite season, my personal favorite season. But I found myself complaining about the heat, and I was kind of like, hold on. You complain all winter because it's cold, and now it's hot like you like, and you're complaining about this just because you feel like it's what you're supposed to say in this conversation. Someone's like, oh, it's so hot. Oh my God, yeah, it's so hot.
Yeah, heat wave.
Yeah, but I don't actually feel that way. To start rewiring your brain, to start finding casual magic, to start finding small joys, you actually need to be able to identify what you're thinking, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but that's why all the mindfulness practices and meditation and journaling and all those things are so important, because a lot of the time you think on autopilot. You don't even realize the patterns of thinking that you have. You don't realize the way that you look at things until you actually identify it for yourself, almost from a third person point of view. And oh, wow, I didn't realize that's what I was thinking about this. And that's why reflection is so important, because we're so influenced culturally. We're so influenced by the things around us. It's important for us to know what we are actually thinking and why we're actually thinking it and whether we even agree with it at all.
I'm so grateful that you decide to go against the misery of British culture and that you are so passionately joyous, but also share that with us in writing. I would love to hear more about your journey to getting into writing, of falling in love with words. I know you've been quite vocal online about how important words are to you. How did you fall in love with words?
I've just always loved reading. My mum loves reading. I'm one of 5 siblings. And
where are you in the
Second.
5? Second. Okay.
My mum used to take us to libraries and story times really often. And one of the things I've always loved about words is how they reify feelings. There are things that we all feel or have in common, and then someone says a word or gives a term to it or puts it in a sentence or puts it in a different form of media, and automatically we're connected and we realize, we're all connected by this thing that now has a term that I can use and other people will understand me. It's communication, it's connection. I love words generally. When I was in primary school, I was always aware that English was kind of my best subject. And then it was maybe when I got a bit older, when I got to adulthood, when I got to university, really, that I understood that or realized that I was good at communicating my feelings and articulating my feelings in a way that was understood well by other people.
That journaling.
all that journaling to me. I shouldn't have been focused on chemistry. I should have been focused on the notebook. Yeah, when I was in university, I used to write a blog every week. Part of it was to kind of give myself some kind of structure and some kind of discipline. Part of it was catharsis. University can be quite a lonely time. It's the first time you're out in the world as an adult yourself. And I used to publish it publicly on WordPress. 20 people would read it like every week, but I wasn't aware of the impact it had until one week. I post at 8 a.m. on Friday.
Wow,
1 week.
so disciplined.
I did it for 152 weeks, so like well over 2 years. That I would just, and it was really helping me just to process and to articulate and my mum said something at the time that really meant a lot to me. She said, "You never know what you're doing for other people by sharing the way you feel, even if people never say it. There are people seeing this, and you never know what you're doing for them by sharing what you feel." There was one week that I missed a blog post. And I posted it in the evening rather than in the morning. And at about 9:30, I got a text from my friend who had left university. He was already working. And he was like, "Bro, I was on the train this morning and there was nothing to read."
Wow.
I was like, "What, you've been reading this?" Yeah, I'll read it every week. And this
Not
morning,
just reading, but waiting for it.
Actively
anticipating.
waiting for it. Yeah. And I was like, wow,
wow.
Not just my thoughts and the things like this is valuable to somebody. This is crazy. And I think that's a feeling that just constantly, consistently stays with me. Like, obviously, I hope more than one person reads this book, but every one individual who reads this book feels things as strongly as I do, has their own life as rich and complex as mine, and has chosen to spend their precious time on something that I've written. And the love that I have for words is being felt by somebody else. Yeah. I feel like love is at its most powerful and at its most wonderful when it's felt by somebody. So someone reading the words that I write means they're feeling my love for words. And that is the best feeling ever to think about.
And is there maybe a story or a poem or a book that you read growing up that really stuck with you and helped inspire this love of words?
There's a book called Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, who was a Nigerian author. My parents both read it at school. And I first read it to impress my parents and to impress my mom, because it's one of my favorite books. And was so moved by it that I read it. There was a point where I'd read it every month. And it's about colonialism in Nigeria. And it's one of the first books by an African author to really make it over to the Western world. For someone to articulate the pain of a people in a way that people who have no common experience could fully understand was so powerful and so moving to me that I was just like, if I could ever do anything like that, it doesn't have to be about anything serious or deep or important. But if I'm ever able to communicate an emotion and communicate an experience to somebody in a way that means that they can have a completely different experience but still be able to feel what I felt, I'll know that I'm a good writer. Wow. So that really kind of shaped the way I look at writing, the way that, and kind of my objective with writing. That's when I first thought about writing for other people and writing to connect with other people rather than just writing for myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I just think of how each of us is like a tapestry of all the stories that we've ever known and read or watched, right? Like, it's so beautiful that words are an opportunity to literally be taken into someone else's experiences. Like I often say, you know, if you ever want to learn about people and like become more empathetic, read fiction, because you're taken into the life experiences of people who are not like you, and you get to be them and feel them and understand them. So yeah, I'm so glad that your passion for words shines through in everything that you do. How did that then transition into you becoming a poet?
I've always loved music very much. A lot of people listen to music and don't really listen to lyrics. I feel like people are like music people or lyric people.
I am such a lyrics
Big
person.
lyric person.
I don't care about music. I care about the lyrics. Like if a song doesn't have lyrics, I don't think it's a good song. Hot take, but like, oh, I'm saying that online is quite intense, isn't it?
I understand. But I understand. Make sure when you crop that, you crop it with context. But seriously, I completely get it. I mean, yeah, for me, lyrics come before music itself. But that said, they can't exist without each other. It's a beautiful, and it depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But I am never ever going to be, and have never been, a person who could listen to a song and not hear the lyrics. I have to. The lyrics are involved, and that's what moves me most. When I first started trying to create, the first thing I started to create online was music, or share online was music, and then I quickly realized that it wasn't so much the music that I was good at, or that I was good at making. It was the writing. I was good at writing, and that kind of felt like, okay, I've tried blogging in a sense. I've tried music. The perfect middle ground kind of fits into lyrics, but really is poetry.
Yeah.
And sharing poetry is where I felt the most happy and at home and wonderful. I mean, I read a poem from the book earlier, and that was strange for me because I don't write my poems down when I post them online.
Which is such a talent.
Thanks. I mean, it's I didn't realize that wasn't something it's not something I say out loud frequently, because it's not something I want to be like a thing. Oh, he never writes it. Sometimes I'll write something like that if I want to say something very specific, but generally,
you're feeling a moment, you literally will just turn on the camera and just come up with magic.
You can call it magic. I'll call them words. I'll come up with words.
But there's like rhyme and rhythm and you know, you're capturing the feeling. So like, how can you not be thinking about that? Like, and mulling over every word. It's so impressive.
Because it's so fun.
Yeah.
And I know that if I enjoy it, the people who like that kind of thing will enjoy it.
Do you do multiple takes?
When I do more takes, it kind of takes, then I'm starting to think about more detail. And I'm thinking about the rhythm and the structure and all. That's what, I mean, writing this book has been such a fun, I've loved it. I've really, really loved it. And it's been the first time that I've really thought about the poetry that I write in terms of, does this make sense on the page? Am I okay with the amount of syllables in each line and all that kind of stuff? Because when I do my videos, I'll just speak.
Yeah.
If I was then to transcribe the poem, I'd probably end up changing it and tweaking it so it's like more perfect and better in a literary sense. But I'm not thinking about being literary when I do it online. I'm thinking about, I'm happy. How can I show people I'm happy, make them happy with me? Yeah.
Wow. And I love how it's like, because you went on to study English at university,
yes.
right? Is that correct?
Study English and French, yeah.
English and French.
English and French.
Oh, we need to talk about that. Okay, but so you studied English. I can imagine being so aware of actual literary techniques, right? Like actual stylistic elements of what constitutes a good poem, how that could actually limit you in trying to create something perfect or something that people think is good. I think it's very impressive that even though you went and studied it to such a high degree, you're able to retain this freedom, you know, this like childlike play with words and just allow it to flow from you without need to question if it's good or not.
But this is where it ties in so much to the whole philosophy around casual magic and feeling joy.
Yeah.
Because you're so right. When you're taught there's a certain way to do things, or this is what's regarded as the right way to do it, or critically impressive, it feels like, okay, that's the way it must be done. Otherwise, it's not valid at all. The stuff that I enjoy making most of, the stuff that resonates most with people, is the stuff I think least about. And that means it's coming from the purest place. I'm a big believer in doing the things that feel right to you and letting yourself find the right people. If I were to try and write poetry a certain way, it would take some of my essence out of it. When I'm living my life and trying to be happy, if I was trying to live my life or find my small joys in a way that makes sense to other people, looks good to other people, it's performative, it takes away from me, it's not real. I'm not going to feel what I should feel when I finish doing it. I say thank you a lot to my online community, and I say I'm really grateful a lot.
So you studied French.
I did.
As well. I would love to hear more about how accessing an entire new language with a whole new set of vocabulary, with more words to describe concepts, how that changed your relationship to seeing how much words can affect our experience of our emotions, of like even recognizing happiness. You know, more vocabulary means more, I guess, tagging of things in our experience.
I grew another part of my brain by learning languages, because ultimately language is communication, is making yourself understood and being understood. The last chapter in the book is actually wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my study of French, my study of the French language. I was very drawn to grammar, which is something that a lot of people didn't understand. There's a tense in French called the plus que parfait, which is the past perfect, which is for a completed action in the past. So there's the past imperfect and the past perfect. The past imperfect is almost like I was going to the shop, as in the action is in progress in the past. I went to the shop is the past perfect because the action is done, it's completed. But the past perfect literally affected the way that I see my life and I see my history.
Oh.
Massively. I used to find it really difficult to let go of things that I was upset about, or things I wished I'd done better, or situations where I felt like I deserved better, or situations where I should have been better. And when I learned about the past perfect, I just really loved the way that felt. It's almost like, in terms of what the past is supposed to be, gone, this is perfect. Perfect not in the sense of I'm super happy about it. Perfect is in it's completed.
Finality.
It's done. However I feel about it, the past is perfect. It's completed.
Oof.
The only thing I can do is learn from those lessons, live in my present, and let my experiences shape my future.
Wow.
So language, in short, has brought me a whole new perspective, and is one of the foundations, I think, of why I see life so positively. Yeah.
That was beautiful. As if you just said that from your head just now. Like a whole lesson about grammar. So as someone who is only fluent in one language, I've dabbled in other languages.
I mean, you have a lot of interest in language. So how many languages have you made overtures in? If not fluency, you've stepped into.
Quite a few. My mum's Dutch.
Okay.
So I was fluent in Dutch until I was 7, and then never learnt it formally, only orally. So kind of like lost it over the years, but I understand the majority of Dutch. I've been learning German really regularly this year, and I think it comes very naturally to me because of Dutch, because they're very similar and like the grammar structures are similar. I studied Korean for a year and a half before moving to Seoul, and that was fascinating just because Korean is so different from English. And Hangul, the Korean alphabet. I don't know if you know much about Korean.
I went to South Korea.
Oh my God.
Year.
Did you like it?
Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, but it's fascinating, like how simple it is. Basically, the history of the language. The emperor at the time was like, oh, Chinese Mandarin is too difficult for our population to be speaking. No one can write it. And so he literally enlisted his monks to invent a language that anyone could learn to read or write in a day.
That's incredible.
That is fascinating, right? To be able to create a language that has the depth and the complexity to communicate all the thoughts of the human experience, but that can be learned in a day to be read and written. Yeah, so it's actually quite easy to learn to read and write Korean, but obviously there's so much more difficulty that comes from having to learn the vocabulary, and it sounds so different to Latin languages. But yeah, so I've dabbled in quite a few languages, but nothing to fluency. But yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think the limitations are of the languages that we know, the vocabulary that we have? Like, language is so powerful in how it can describe our experience, but because of its power, I feel like can also limit it.
I think that's why in all of these things, time is such a key factor. Feelings are so complex. One of the best books I've ever read for my personal development and my emotional articulation is Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. And she talks about how most of us in our general vocabulary only have the words or a few words to describe how we're feeling, the major words, happy, sad, angry, and no words for the spaces in between. When I read that, I put that book down for about 2 weeks because I don't even think I'm ready. I'm ready to absorb this. It just really bothered me to read that because I thought about it. I was like, that's so correct, but
so true. And you're like grasping at the nearest word, right? You're like, oh, what do I feel? And like, I suppose it has to be happy, maybe.
I think that's where also compassion and understanding play such a key role in our relationships, because sometimes we take something someone says.
Oh my God.
Not sometimes, a lot of the time.
Yes.
Especially we take something someone says at face value without the consideration and the grace of this is just the best way they could possibly articulate it in this moment.
And we extrapolate an entire world onto what they've said.
Which, especially if you're a deep thinker.
Yes.
Yeah, have I called it? Have I called you out? Which, especially if you're a deep thinker, it can be detrimental to our relationships generally.
Yeah.
And especially in the world we live in now, where so much is done over text, and you literally most of the time are interpreting how people feel from the way they write and the things they say. It's very difficult to really truly understand and feel and hear what people are truly thinking and how they're really feeling. Compassion, understanding, and time are really important things to consider in our relationships. The ones we want to make work, the ones we want to build, and the ones we want to work on. Because language alone isn't enough to do everything. Despite how wonderful it is, language alone isn't enough to do everything. One of the things that's really difficult about that, which I'm encountering a lot at the moment, I love crosswords and I read a lot. So I come across a lot of new words. And I'm always really worried to use the words wrong.
Yes.
Always really
Or
worried
to pronounce them wrong because you've only read them.
But exactly. That falls in the large category of things that if people tease you for this, that says a lot more about them than it does about you. And especially the people around you who care about you. Even if you just say or you express, I'm trying to use more words recently. I'm trying to use more words. So if I say something that doesn't sound right, let me know. I'm just trying something out. I'm trying things out. Because to try and fail is no disgrace. There is never any shame in trying. So yeah, making the effort to try new words and to access sources of new words. I cannot personally recommend anything more than books. Books are, other worlds. I recommend that one specifically.
Frequently happy, guys. Buy it now.
3 things about books. 1, consume them however you want. Listening to an audiobook it counts as consuming a book. Of course it does. 2, it doesn't have to be deep, critically acclaimed literature for it to be worth your time reading. One of my favorite authors, Matt Haig, says something that I love. I love Matt. He changed my life. He says something that I really love. He said, I've never understood the criticism of easy reading. You wouldn't criticize an architect for making a house easy to live in. And that's exactly how I feel about books. If something comes easily to you to read and you enjoy it, that's the point. That's
it's a mark of great writing, equally.
The whole point is that you enjoy yourself. I mean, it's not every single thing we do in our lives has to improve us. And the great thing about reading is that you improve as a byproduct of reading.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the main objective of reading. The main objective is to enjoy it like any other form of media that you consume to relax and, to enjoy your life. So yeah, reading massively in any form and whatever you like to read, reading and trying out the new words that you find when you can.
And something that's been really powerful for me as an online creator is to realize how storytelling about my own life allows me to almost be the main character of this narrative and allows me to see that any tough times that I'm going through are literally temporary and that I get to control the narrative, right? And I get to frame to myself how this experience went and how it's going to serve me and almost like gain back some autonomy, especially in situations where, it's out of my control. Like, for example, I was kicked out of my flat in London in August. And I just got a random email from my landlord saying, you've got to be out in a month. And it was in that moment where I got to share that on social media and I got to create a reel out of it, that it forced me to create a new narrative around that moment. I've been kicked out of my flat, but I choose to see it as, serendipitous because I believe that I'm going to be given something new that I can't see yet that's maybe going to serve me even better. And for anyone who's listening who maybe wants to take more control of their life and who wants to, be empowered to find more of these small joys, how do you think storytelling is something helpful in their journey to doing that?
When you look at your life in a certain way, it helps you to realize, it helps you to see your big narrative arc and you as the main character in that, or you as the character that's going through those challenges. We're all very familiar with narrative arcs and watching people go, and stories. We're familiar with stories. Everyone's been told bedtime stories, we watch films, we read books, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, being able to observe the events of your life and understand where you sit in it. And then to add, I think what you said that was really important is the agency part of that, like to recognize that you are someone going through these things, you're living this story, and you are actually the one holding the pen. Like you are in control of the things that you're going through to a certain extent. There are some situations where objectively things are difficult. Like, let's use the example of you being kicked out of your flat. It feels like in that moment, I've got no choice but to move out. You have choices. It's just the options aren't very nice. You know, you have to find a new place. You actually could choose to squat there, but squatting is illegal, so you'd be arrested. But you could choose that. You could choose that. Yeah. That's an option. You just don't like that option. There are always options in anything we're going through. The options might not be nice. They might objectively be poor options, but we always have some kind of choice. And the choices we make are what are important, because that's what we do to give ourselves better options and to change our overarching situations. Looking at your life as a story, and the power of storytelling is such that you can see how at any given point in a story, there are options, there are ways the story could go. And in our own lives, we have the agency to be able to pick the choices that take us into better places in our own story, if that makes sense. Yeah, no,
that makes total sense. It's like, yeah, the options might not be ideal, but the fact that you get to at least choose which path you go down is the agency.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And it's like, I think that is probably the most optimistic way to reframe something that is just objectively bad, right? Yeah, love it. So recently, one of the stories that you let us into online was your journey with your shoulder injury. It was really beautiful, like being able to watch like your incremental recovery and healing journey. And I think has been such a source of inspiration for a lot of people, because objectively, when we get an injury, it's a horrible thing, right? It's a horrible thing to be limited in any way. And I'm sure a lot of people listening have experienced, you know, some kind of health setback, and recovery is slow, and necessarily so. Maybe you could chat to us a bit more about that injury and maybe what it taught you about finding small joys.
Yeah, so earlier this year in May, I had an operation on my shoulder. I injured my shoulder and had an operation, which is the first time I've ever had any kind of operation. I've always played sports and stuff, but always been lucky enough to never have any serious injuries, especially not on this scale. And the recovery timeline is 12 months. So automatically,
12 months.
It was just
Wow.
a whole year. So automatically hearing that in the first place was, really demoralizing. And I mean, first of all, the literal pain of the first few weeks. I had my arm in a sling for 2 months, which made me feel really limited. Then having to do daily rehab exercises to kind of get mobility back in my shoulder and all that kind of stuff has been really, really tough. That operation also happened at the time when I was in the final stages of finishing the book. I'd left the most daunting parts for last. I had rewrites of certain chapters to do. I was reworking the sections. And all of a sudden, it went from, oh, so excited to write this book, it's in a great place, to I don't actually know if I can finish this on time. Plus, the book is called Frequently Happy, and I am right now objectively sad.
The irony.
If anything, one, it made the book so much better because I was really forced to practice what I preached. Like, I was not enjoying life as a whole at the time. Joy and optimism and positivity are just as much survival tools as they are things that improve our life, if that makes sense. If I hadn't been practicing those joys and practicing that optimism at the time, I wouldn't have been able to get myself out of bed to do the things that I needed to do, especially those things that only I could do. Getting full mobility back in my shoulder is dependent on me doing my rehab exercises every day, my physio exercises. And if I don't do those, no one's going to come and lift my arm up for me. Like I have to do it. The second thing is that I had to obviously slow down work-wise, which since being an online creator, since being a full-time creator, has been something I've really struggled with.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to do this career. I love what I do. And part of the downside of that, it shouldn't be a downside, part of it is I was very worried that it would go away. That would lead to me overworking myself, saying yes to everything, making sure I'm constantly present, making sure I'm sharing all the time.
How long is this going to last? How long is that algorithm going to like me?
All those questions all the time. And literally at the point, I don't have anything in me to post or create. I actually have to stop and slow down and just see what happens. And everything was fine. everything
did actually objectively quite well.
Yeah, objectively everything was, and it even felt better. I actually remembered I really like doing this.
Wow.
Rather than it being a case of every week I go to bed feeling a little bit anxious. Okay, this has to go out tomorrow at this time. I was genuinely just thinking, okay, cool, what's going to come out this week?
I love that.
And it brought me back to a place that reminded me how blessed I am to do what I'm doing, but also how much I truly, truly love and enjoy it. And made me feel a real sense of security in it that I haven't felt before. At the time, if you'd said this to me, I would have been very upset with you and wouldn't have wanted to hear it. Now I can say it very happily that I got a lot of lessons out of that difficult situation. One of the worst things is to be in a difficult situation and someone just be telling you, oh, but you'll learn so much from this. It's very much an activity in retrospect, but in retrospect.
Yeah. You're like, shut up.
Why
it's actually really hard. Can you not?
do you hate me or what?
Yeah. So on that note, what advice would you give anyone who is maybe going through a setback in their life, whether it be a health challenge, an injury, something that requires patience? What advice would you give?
That's where it comes down to literally just continuing. At the time, you can only do what you are capable of doing right now. If you have 10% to give on a day and you give that 10%, that's 100% of what you were capable of at the time. So just keep doing what you have to do. Things change gradually and then all at once. Day by day, things will change a little bit and then you'll be at a point where you look back, you're like, I'm not in that place anymore. Things are better.
That was such succinct, great wisdom. I was like, I had to hold myself back from being like, wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Unfortunately, I think we slowly need to draw to a close. We have this tradition at the end of every episode where I ask you for a moment of casual magic in this week. And I'm also going to ask our viewers just to think of a moment this week that was casually magic. And I'll also share mine. So does anything come to mind for you straight away?
My sister came to stay with us this weekend and we were showing each other songs on YouTube. And she put on a song that was also one of my favorite songs at her age.
Wow.
And she didn't even know whether I'd heard it or not. But it just happens to be one of her favorite songs at the age she's at now. And that made me feel really close and connected to her because wow, we are the same people at different ages.
Can we know what song it was?
It was... No, you can't know what song it was. you know that section of your playlist where it's like, people would judge me for this. No, I'm not.
Stop! Embrace the cringe.
No!
Practice what you preach, Jesus.
And also, I don't know my sister's 18 as well. I don't know if she wants that really else in the world.
You didn't say how old your sister was, and you have 4 siblings.
That's
so there's so much mystery.
Can you stay mysterious? Mystery is the flavor of life.
Okay,
Intrigue keeps people coming back.
Fine, we'll keep the ominous elements.
Thanks,
Okay, so the last few days in Brighton have just been so miserable. This is why I'm thinking about winter right now, and I think misery because it's just been so blustery and rainy. And one day I woke up at 7:30. I looked outside and it literally could have been 2 a.m. It was so dark and dreary. But as it started to get light, and by light I still mean it's completely dark and cloudy, I looked outside and I was shocked because in my dying garden there was this one bush that suddenly started to flower.
Oh.
And I was amazed because I was like, what plant flowers in the dead of winter? And apparently this bush does. And they were the most marvelous yellow flowers. I don't know why it decided to flower this week, but it did. It's just so many gorgeous yellow petals. And so when I look outside my window into the garden, it's just this pop of yellow in a corner of grey. In a corner of grey? A corner of yellow in a map of grey.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And now we're going to listen to a moment of casual magic from one of you guys. And if you're interested in sending in a voice note with a casual magic moment, you can send it to us on @casualmagicpodcast on Instagram.
Hi Jade, today I would like to share with you my casual magic. So I'm French. My casual magic was that I got my driving license, but not even that because that's an achievement in itself. My casual magic is that my teachers, the people that helped me to learn how to drive, were so kind, so good teachers, and I was afraid to choose the wrong school to learn how to drive. They were just awesome and amazing, and yeah, it was just a lovely experience. So this was my casual magic of the week. Thank you, Jade, for everything.
And our final ritual at the end of every episode, I really love to invite you guys to reflect on your past week. And you can grab a journal or a notebook or get your notes app out or even just answer these questions in your head. And I'm going to ask you, David, for an intention that you want to bring into your coming week. So as I'm asking these questions, you can just reflect to yourself. Ask yourself, what went well this week? What are you proud of? What are some little wins? And what is something that maybe challenged you this week? Or something that you would change coming into the next week? And then, based on this, what is an intention that you want to carry into your new week? It can be one word, a phrase, or a theme. David, what is your intention for this coming week?
To start my bedtime ritual earlier, so I get to do everything I like to do before bed. I like to be very methodical about my flossing and brushing, my reading, and then falling asleep. When I go to bed too late or I start that process too late, I end up not getting enough sleep because I insist on going through the process.
Yeah.
And especially that reading part, that becomes longer because then I dread going to sleep because I know I'm not going to get enough sleep and I would be tired the next morning. So my intention is to be more organized with my time, start the process earlier so that I can do it all in good time to have a good night's sleep.
And do you normally wake up at about the same time every
Yes,
day?
yeah.
I see. And you don't want to shift that.
No.
So it's like, you've just got to make sure that the bedtime routine is there to get the sleep.
Yes.
I think my intention for next week is acceptance. Because I think at this time of year, I set myself big goals. And I always love doing that. And it's empowering and amazing. But recently I've just been, pushing forward on everything. I'm in the gym, I'm doing the habits. And yeah, I just also want to carry this loving acceptance of the knowledge that whether I'm doing everything that I've set out to do or I'm not, it's all okay. It can all exist. It can all be, so acceptance.
Absolutely. I love that a lot.
This has genuinely been such a joy. Thank you, David.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, really.
Genuinely.
I feel like just everything you say aligns so well with the mission of everything I care about with Casual Magic. And yeah, you're just a beacon of light in the online world. So thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
And if no one has told you guys today, I just want to remind you that you are enough. You are enough exactly as you are, no matter where you are in your grand mission to achieve all your goals of the year or, your grand self-discovery. No matter where you are, no matter how hectic or challenging or light and easy things feel for you today, just remember that you're doing enough. You are enough. I think that is just always something that we need to remember. Thank you so much for being here. If you made it to this point of the episode, then wow, that's honestly, I'm always so impressed that that you have the attention span in the modern day and age to make it to the end of a podcast. No, but really, thank you so much for sharing this time and space with us. And as always,
stay tuned and stay magical.